All right, well, it is 2 o'clock. We are going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Environmentally Sensitive Timber Bridge Design and Construction. My name is Cheyenne Stopford, and I'm the Sales and Marketing Coordinator at York Bridge Concepts. For those of you who don't know about us, York Bridge Concepts is a full-service design build firm specializing in vehicular and pedestrian bridges focused on longevity, style, and craftsmanship. Our 8,000 bridges, or 8,000 plus bridges at this point, can be seen in almost all 50 states, as well as the Caribbean islands, Central America, and Europe. Now, today's presenter is going to be Titus. Hi, Titus. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, Cheyenne. Good to be with you again.
I'm excited to have you kick us off in this webinar series. Titus is our lead senior bridge consultant and has been with the company for 21 years.
So good to be with you. I believe this is our 4th webinar this year. We have one more to go coming up next month, and certainly glad to have all the people joining with us today.
Absolutely. Just a little bit of, I guess, housekeeping before I pass the mic on to Titus. I did want to point out some Zoom features that we'll be utilizing throughout the webinar. If you have a question, please feel free to type that in the Q&A, but please know we'll only get to those and answer those at the end of the presentation. I will kick it over to Titus.
Well, today we're going to be talking about building bridges for longevity, how to make a timber bridge last. You know, Cheyenne, being a national company, we are talking to clients all over the country every day about timber bridges. And in my 21 years here, can you guess what question has been asked the most often?
I'm going to go with, how long can a York timber bridge last?
There you go. You've got it right. People always want to know, well, Titus, how long can a timber bridge last? And I think they're shocked when they see the answer that it is 75 years or more. People just don't think that. And the question belies the misunderstanding that a lot of people have. They think that timber is an inferior material compared to steel and concrete. Why would anybody build a timber bridge today when they could build a bridge out of steel and concrete and it's going to last a whole lot longer? Timber's not going to last very long. So when I tell people that our vehicular bridges carry a 75-year design life, many times they are shocked. And Cheyenne, can you guess what the second most often asked question is?
Ooh,
It's related.
I don't know. You got me stumped, Titus.
It has to do with maintenance. And then they say, well, how do you maintain the timber bridge? Well, we're going to be addressing both of those in our webinar today. We want to talk about how you build a bridge for extended life service and the maintenance that goes with that. But I do want to address, first of all, the misunderstanding. Here's what's happened. Since anybody can cut a board and hammer a nail, we've had thousands of companies all over the country that have built timber bridges. Oh, that's easy. That's simple. I can build a timber bridge. And many times they haven't lasted very long and they haven't looked very good and they were maintenance issues with them. Well, what we do is totally different. We are a professional timber bridge building company, design, build. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about it from that particular angle. You know, Cheyenne, the U.S. Forest Service tells us that there are over 1,000 bridges that are in existence today, still in use, that are over 90 years of age.
Wow.
Timber will last. By the way, Cheyenne, have you ever been to a covered timber bridge?
I have, actually. I have. Almost like the one in this picture here.
Oh, there you go. There's hundreds of these across the country, and most of these old historic covered timber bridges were built in the 1800s. And it just shows that timber's a good material to build a bridge out of, and it will last if you design it and build it correctly. I came across an interesting survey that was put out by the Federal Highway Administration. They were comparing timber, steel, and concrete piling. Now, they were comparing it from the standpoint of driven in the ground to support a structure. The question was, how long would they last? And they said that steel and concrete piling driven on the ground will last about 100 years. 100 years, that's almost as old as you, Cheyenne. That's pretty good.
Funny guy.
But when they came to timber, they said timber will last indefinitely. Wow. I think that shocks a lot of people. Yes, timber bridges properly designed and properly built can last 75 years or more. Well, in front of you, you have our outline of the day. We're going to talk about, first of all, the design and materials that we utilize here to make our bridges last longer. Secondly, we're going to talk about our protective systems. And then third, maintenance of a timber bridge. Let's begin by talking about design and material. Before I get into this, Cheyenne, I wanted to mention to you something. Let's say 20 years ago, you went and bought a car and it was a Kia. And now 20 years later, somebody says, well, you should go buy another car. And you say, well, I'm not going to buy a car because cars don't last very long and there are maintenance issues to them. Well, that might have been true with that car you bought 20 years ago. But that doesn't mean if you go to a Mercedes dealership, you're going to find the same thing. The key is the materials that are utilized, the design that is utilized, in a case of a Mercedes, the parts that they utilize. We all understand that they're going to utilize better materials, better parts, superior design, and therefore that car is going to last a whole lot longer, not be a maintenance issue, and of course it's going to be a gorgeous car as well. Well, the same thing happens in the timber bridge industry, and that's what we're going to be addressing today. Now, I want to begin talking a little bit about timber in general and the type of woods that we utilize. We utilize on the East Coast, normally southern yellow pine. We're out west in the dry, arid parts of the United States. We would utilize Doug fir. Those types of lumber are native to those areas. So you begin by picking the right kind of lumber in the right area. Now, here's an example of a vehicular bridge that we built in South Florida. This is all southern yellow pine, pressure-treated lumber that the entire bridge was built out of, superstructure and substructure. And southern yellow pine, pressure-treated in the southeast like this, will work very, very well.
Now, Titus, can you tell us a little bit about the process of the longevity of the southern yellow pine?
Yes, you know, Cheyenne, if you take a piece of wood and you put it outdoors, it's not going to last very long. Guess what's going to happen to it?
Oh, I'm going to say the termites or something is going to have a feast on that.
Yeah, the termites and bugs are going to eat it, and it's going to start to rot and decay from all of the moisture and the elements. So they take the lumber and they pressure treat it. And here's an example of the vacuum tubes they use. They put the lumber in, it is treated, and so now the wood will last outdoors because it's been pressure treated. There's a number of places that do what's called stake test, and they've been going on since the 1940s, where they take the pressure treated lumber and they stick it in the ground. Then every few years they pull the stake up out of the ground and look at it and measure the decay. And these stake tests have indicated that pressure treated lumber will last very, very well outdoors. Now, this bridge is actually in the Lake Tahoe area, and it uses Douglas fir, being out in the western part of the United States, where it is drier and more arid. When they take Douglas fir, they have to do something special to be able to treat it. And you see, Cheyenne, the little indentations in the wood?
I do. What is that?
They run this through an incising machine, and they're punching these little holes into it, or indentations, and that's for it to be able to accept the pressure treatment. Southern yellow pine is a little less dense compared to the Douglas fir. It readily accepts the pressure treatment. The Doug fir needs to be incised, but again, you're still able then to pressure treat it and to use the lumber outdoors and build a bridge out of it, and it will last for many, many, many years. Now, one of the special things that we do with our vehicular bridges is we add a secondary decking system It's called a wear deck. Think about it like the top part of an asphalt road. You know, an asphalt road, there's several layers to it. The top part's what everybody drives on. And then as it wears out, they just cut that off and resurface it. They don't have to build the whole road. We do something similar with our timber bridges, Cheyenne. We add a second deck underneath. There's a structural subdeck, and then over the top, we're putting a wearing surface, a timber wear deck. The intent? Well, that takes all of the use and the abuse of the traffic, and then as it wears out, you can easily replace that top surface without having to replace the substructure. Now, one of the things that we recommend is upgrading the wood we utilize for that wear deck to a natural hardwood. In this case, by the way, this bridge is up in the panhandle of Florida, big 2-lane vehicular bridge, as you see, all pressure treated lumber on the side, but the top, the wearing deck, is Ipe. This is a natural hardwood. It's much denser and it's going to last much longer as a wearing surface. And by the way, Cheyenne, you can see all the grooves that have been cut into the wear deck. Do you have any idea what that's about?
I'm going to guess to give it a really good texture for the bridge. Am I right?
Well, texture is part of it, but in this case, it keeps it from being so slippery so that it does provide for traction and therefore a non-skid type of surface on the bridge.
That's great. Now, I believe we have, here it is, the chart of the Janka hardness. Can you go into a little bit of detail about this?
The Janka hardness scale basically talks about the different types of wood and the hardness of them. And without going into a lot of detail, you can see there toward the bottom, southern yellow pine and Doug fir, and the number of the hardness of that wood, but look at it compared to the Ipe and to the Jatoba. We used to use Ipe a lot. Now we're using more Jatoba for our wear decks and sometimes in our pedestrian bridges. But you can tell, Cheyenne, by looking at the numbers, that the natural hardwoods are 3 to 4 times harder, and therefore they're going to last much longer in the bridge design.
So if I'm building a bridge personally, I would definitely want either Jatoba or Ipe for the longevity. That's for sure.
It makes for a great material to utilize. We also utilize some of these hardwoods in our handrail as well. And here you see for the railing and the cap has been out of the hardwood as well.
Well, it's definitely beautiful. And with the Jatoba, are the colors, do they come that way? Can you kind of explain to the audience here?
Well, the Ipe has a beautiful rich brown color, the Jatoba a little bit more reddish tint to it, but these being natural hardwoods will silver out over time, but they do have a beautiful coloration to them.
Absolutely.
Well, now thinking about all the hundreds of different details that make a bridge special that we do here at York Bridge. Just like in my Mercedes illustration, Cheyenne, if you go to buy a Mercedes, the sales rep doesn't really have to tell you all of the hundreds of different details that makes that car better, but you know it is, and he knows it is. And what we're doing today is we're just picking out 7 or 8 of the things that we do to make our bridges last much longer. But there's hundreds and hundreds of these details that we could actually go through with a York Timber Bridge. Now, in this case, we're talking about design and materials, but we want to talk a little bit about the decking. In this case, we're using a reinforced polymeric lumber. It's a form of a composite, and we recommend composite in our pedestrian bridges for our decks, and we also use them for the caps and some of the rails in our handrails. It's going to last for a long, long time, be much less maintenance over time. It's a great material to build with from a deck standpoint.
Now, in terms of materials, looks like we have some wire railing here. Would that also, or cable railing, I apologize, would that also come into play with the longevity for a bridge?
It does, compared to just say a wood picket or a horizontal wood rail. And those will last, maybe a little bit more maintenance to them, but we have upgraded handrail designs, and this is one of them. By the way, Cheyenne, I think you've been on this bridge recently.
You know, I sure have. For those of you who follow us on social media, we actually just did a video recently with Titus, no other than himself, was being videoed on this beautiful bridge. And a fun fact about this, it's actually a hop, skip, and a jump away from our headquarters here in Tampa. It's a beautiful bridge. If you guys are ever in the Tampa area or live in the Tampa area, would definitely recommend checking it out in the Carrollwood Village area.
Carriage Village Park, and a new park built in Tampa. And we were honored to build this, I think it's 520 feet long pedestrian bridge. And you can see the materials that we have utilized, the design, and of course, the beauty that goes with it.
Absolutely. Well, let's see.
Well, when you think about designs and materials, increasing the longevity of a bridge, one of the things we also do is the use of pile caps. On the left, you can see an old wooden post that was built on a timber bridge, no piling, no cap, or not pile cap, I'm sorry, post caps. And you can see on the post, there was no cap put on it. And over time, moisture got in and the board started to decay. So we recommend and utilize various type of pile caps, like you see on the right, piling caps, excuse me, post caps. These are the posts for our guardrails, and we have various kinds that we can utilize. Another way we help to protect the wood and make the bridge last much longer. Something else we do, a lot of times we're building bridge in a saltwater environment. You know, saltwater environment's very, very harsh to a bridge, Cheyenne.
Yep. You know, sometimes if I'm out at a pier or something in the area, and we'll look down and see all the barnacles that are on the posts and just think, oh man, so this is what we do to protect those pilings in the salt water?
Well, we do a couple of things, Cheyenne. We increase the level of pressure treatment to its maximum, 2.5 CCA, and then we wrap the piling. In salt water, you have these marine boars, and they eat into the wood of the water line. And so we add another layer of protection by wrapping the piling, again, to be able to make that bridge last much, much longer. Something else we do is what we call here at York Bridge, dual coating of our hardware. It's either an additional layer of galvanization, or sometimes it is a paint that has been put onto the hardware that's on the superstructure of the bridge, like you see in the picture on the left. We do use hot dip galvanized hardware, but then we add another layer of coating, or we'll use stainless steel screws. So by utilizing these materials and then dual coating the galvanized hardware, it's just going to make it last much longer.
And also, you could also see that it brings a sense of a pop to the design itself in that picture on the right.
Yeah, I like that black contrast with the wood. Something else that we do to make our bridges last much longer, and that is we cover over the holes that we drill with silicone. On the right side, you're seeing the cap of a bridge that goes on top of the piling, and there is a pin that's been driven down through the cap into the piling. So they're covering the top of that with silicone. On the left, this is the deck of a vehicular bridge. Lag bolts are used to attach the decking down into the stringer, and they're countersunk because another deck, surface, timber, wear deck is going to go over top. It's got a lie flush. So those have been countersunk. Well, where those holes are, we don't want water to sit in there. So we're putting silicone over those holes. Again, just one of the many, many things that we do to make our bridges special and make them last longer. Something else that we do that is very important, since we're drilling and cutting in the field, we build everything custom built in the field by our own crews. Whenever we drill a hole or we cut a board, we're going to respray copper naphthenate, because you are allowing for some potential moisture over 20, 30 years. So you want to just help to reseal that. Very important to making wood last outdoors for a long time.
Now, since we've talked about, or since you've talked about the design and materials, can you tell us a little bit about how we protect those materials for the longevity for our bridges?
Yeah, so we want to talk next about our protective systems. And again, going back to the design and materials, we just picked out 7 or 8 different items. We could have talked about hundreds of different things. Being a design build company, we design the bridges ourselves, we build them ourselves. And so as you can tell with the designs that we utilize, we built all over the country. We know how to build a bridge in the desert of Arizona or the salt water off the coast of Florida. We know the proper materials to use, and we know how to build it right. And by so doing, we can build bridges that are going to last much, much longer. But Cheyenne, you're right. You got to protect those bridges. You got to protect the wood. Cheyenne, what do you think is the greatest danger, detriment to a timber bridge over time?
Well, I'm going to go based on my cheat sheet on the screen. It's going to go with the UV rays, the intense UV rays from the sun, along with
that
the moisture.
that a lot of people probably don't think that. They think, well, it's the elements, it's the moisture. And yes, that's a detriment, and you have to make sure that the wood is going to be protected and to stand up against that. But the big issue really are the UV rays. A lot of times people don't think that, how damaging and harmful UV rays are to the wood. Cheyenne, have you ever been to the beach?
I'm an avid beach goer. So yes.
It's hard to live in Florida and not go to the beach, isn't it? And when you go to the beach, I'm going to guess you put something on your face and your arms.
Well, of course, my self tanner. No, I'm just kidding. Definitely sunscreen. I do not want, all the bad things that come with, the intense UV rays on my skin.
We know what UV rays can do to the skin and the damage. Now, this is pressure treated lumber. So remember, it's intended to last outdoors. But what we're recommending is another layer of protection. And that's by putting some type of a sealant on the wood that is exposed to the UV rays. That's what beats wood up over time. Now, there's a couple of different kinds of sealants or finishes that we put on. First of all, let's talk about the substructure of a bridge, the underneath of the bridge. Now, here's a perfect example, Cheyenne. You see the piling and the back of the abutment and wing walls. All of this has been coated with an acrylic finish, again, to help to protect the wood and to make it last longer.
It's a beautiful underside of the bridge, that's for sure.
Very, very nice, is it not? We also do something very similar to the superstructure or the top of a bridge. And here you can see this is a pedestrian bridge that is up in Massachusetts. It actually goes from a parking lot into a new elementary school they built, and the kids can walk under this covered pedestrian bridge that we built. But the wood in the posts that you see here, part of the wood in the cover and the side gingerbread from the cover, you can see that how that wood has all been finished with the acrylic. The intent? Well, you're trying to protect it to make it last even longer. Now, here's a good example of a bridge that we built up in Delaware, covered bridge trails. This is a single lane vehicular bridge with a pedestrian section, and this is how the bridge looked as we were completing it. But now look at it.
Wow,
This
beautiful.
Case, oh, it is it not, Cheyenne? In this case, instead of acrylic, we have utilized a translucent oil finish. There's about 3 layers of material. And by the way, all the acrylics and the oils that we utilize, this is all high-grade commercial stuff that we're utilizing, multi-coats of it. But you can see not only the difference in the looks, the aesthetics, but now the bridge has been protected. You've got the caps on the post. The exposed wood has now been protected. So that bridge is good to go and ready to last for many, many years. Another before and after shot, Cheyenne, this is in the Fort Worth, Texas area, Walsh Ranch, pedestrian bridge. Here is the bridge. And then later, ta-da, we put on our acrylic finishes onto the rail. This has a composite wear deck surface to it. Beautiful looking bridge, but now the wood's protected, another layer of protection from those harmful UV rays and the elements. Another before and after shot. This is our Emery Flats Bridge. up in Massachusetts before.
Oh, wow. You can
What a
definitely see the
difference,
pop.
Cheyenne.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that a hotel, apartment? What is that back there behind that, Cheyenne?
I believe that is a hotel behind there. One thing that came to my attention is the fact that we were essentially able to match the colors of the bridge to this hotel.
You know, that's an interesting point. Of course, a marketing person would obviously notice that. And you can see the bridge. Now that we've gone back, it's got the acrylic finishes on the piling, the side of the bridge, the post. We did utilize, you can't see it, a composite deck and a composite cap rail, but all of the Southern Yellow Pine has been acrylic coated or finished. So the bridge is protected. It's going to last and be able to withstand all those elements and the UV rays. And as Cheyenne mentioned, what a beautiful aesthetic that it added to the bridge as well.
Absolutely.
Now here's a little bit close up of the translucent oil finishes that we utilize. This is a guardrail of a vehicular bridge. You can see it's a little different look than the acrylic. With the acrylic, you get all the colors and make it almost any color you want it to be. With the oil, it is a tint that is utilized, but you can see the natural grain of the wood. And so it looks a little bit more like the original wood, and yet it's still providing the protection from the UV rays. Well, we've talked about Cheyenne design and materials, the superior designs, superior materials that we utilize here at York Bridge. Second, we've talked about our protective systems and the finishes that we utilize to help make these bridges last longer. Third, we want to now talk about inspections and maintenance of a timber bridge. Now, I want to say this in the beginning, Cheyenne. I don't care what you build a bridge out of. Every bridge has to be maintained. Steel, concrete, timber. I don't care what you build it out of. You've got to inspect it every few years, and you've got to maintain it. Timber isn't any different. So here we have the keys to the longevity for a York timber bridge. Number one, inspect it. Two, clean it occasionally. Three, keep your connections tight. And then number four, touch up or reapply the finishes as need be. And by the way, if you do that, a bridge will last. And I want to say this as well. York Bridge does offer inspection services. So we'll come back and inspect our bridges. We also offer maintenance and refurbishment work. We'll do that as well. But maintaining a timber bridge is simple and easy. We'll gladly do it, but even local maintenance folk can do it. Steel and concrete maintenance of those type of bridges, much more difficult specialty, but timber bridges are very simple and easy to maintain. I love the picture of this bridge. This is out in Bullhead City, Arizona, Cheyenne.
It's a beautiful bridge. You can just see the work, the craftsmanship that went into this.
Laughlin Ranch was a great project. We have a number of bridges out there that we built. This is a covered timber bridge. It's the entrance part of this master plan community. It's a huge subdivision. And the reason we're showcasing this bridge is because they have us come back every few years, inspect the bridges, and then perform any maintenance that needs to be done to them. Now, here's the bridge in 2004 when it was originally built. But we've been back 2017, and now you can see what the bridge looks like again in 2020. And you can see how the finishes have been maintained. The bridge has been maintained. What a beautiful looking bridge, still looking brand new. Another bridge that's very similar that we wanted to showcase, this is our Woodbridge Crossing Bridge in Smyrna, Georgia. Have you ever been to Smyrna, Georgia, Cheyenne?
I have, but in all honesty, I don't think I've ever come across this gorgeous bridge.
This is the Atlanta area, and the bridge is crossing the famous Nickajack Creek. We built this two-lane vehicular bridge, covered vehicular bridge several years ago, and you can see it has all of the oil sealant finishes to it. What a gorgeous looking bridge.
Absolutely. Now, I believe we also went back and redid this one.
Well, we did. We originally built it in 2007. This is what it originally looked like, but we've been back to inspect it and to maintenance on it. 2016, is what it looks like. And there we go, 2020, as we've been back several times over the years. And they also have us come back doing all of this, which we're glad to do. But again, maintenance of a timber bridge is very simple and easy, and local people can certainly do it. But these bridges, they're going to last. If you design it right and you build it right, a timber bridge will give you the kind of longevity that you're looking for. And with all of these finishes like we're talking about, you add a beautiful aesthetic to the bridge as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Titus. We definitely appreciate you going into detail about the longevity for the bridge. You know, it's always great to have you on here with us.
It's good to be with you, Cheyenne.
We do have additional resources available on our website if you're interested in learning more about this topic, or if you have specific questions. I will actually see we have a couple in the chat. I'll get to those in a minute. But if you have specific questions and don't want to ask them here, you're welcome to email me and I will pass your information on to the right person. For those of you who have attended this presentation, please know that it's not accredited. However, if you would like to get a certificate of completion for your records, feel free to always email me at cstopford@ybc.com and I will be glad to provide that for you. All right, so let's jump into the questions. We got quite a few.
All right, we love questions.
Yes, the first one is, do you also use composite reinforcements, carbon fiber glass laminates?
We do not. We do use glue laminated beams, but not that type of beam.
Okay. Second question is, how long would the York Bridge rails be expected to last without the acrylic coating?
Well, it's hard to say. Different parts of the country, you have different UV rays that's going to affect it. So let's say that you did not put any finishes on the superstructure. And so now we're talking about the handrail. I assume we're talking about the handrail of a pedestrian bridge. It's very possible that that wood, pressure treated lumber, could last in the range of 20 to 30 years, maybe a little less in some areas, a little more in others.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, how often should maintenance be performed in order to ensure the 75-year lifespan?
Well, think in terms of inspections about every 4 years, and think in terms of reapplication of the finishes sometime probably in the 10 to 15 year range. Since we utilize high grade commercial sealants, now, by the way, if you just throw a little Thompson water seal on, it won't last a year. But we utilize high grade commercial level sealants. And if you put something like that back on it, somewhere in that 10 to 15 year range is about the time frame you'll be wanting to reapply those finishes.
Great. All right, we got a couple more. What kind of roofing system do you use?
Well, we've utilized several in the covered bridges that we have built. One that you saw today was cedar shakes. Sometimes we'll use just asphalt shingles. Sometimes we have utilized metal roofing. I think the bridge, Douglas Gate Bridge, the one in Massachusetts, I believe it was a metal roof. So we utilize various types. Being a custom design build company, we have a lot of different material options depending upon what the client might be looking for.
Okay. And then looks like the last question we have is it recommended to periodically tighten the mechanical fasteners that hold the connections of a timber bridge?
That's a good question. And the answer, of course, is yes to that. The majority of our bridges we return to at some point ourselves, just as a courtesy visit, to look at the bridge and to tighten up the bolts and the fasteners. Most of the time after that, since the wood has gone through all of its motions, it's already done its shrinking, and it's pretty stable at that point. Normally the bolts will stay tight. Occasionally, vibration on a vehicular bridge can potentially loosen them up. So yes, when they do inspections, they should check the tightness of the bolts. Typically, those bolts, well, you not only want to check them, but you do want to retighten them to make sure they stay tight to keep the longevity of the bridge. If the bolts get tight and the wood starts getting loose, then obviously you can see how that's going to wear the bridge much, much quicker.
Well, thank you, Titus. I believe those are all the questions that we have.
Some good questions. We'll take some more if you guys want to. Feel free to
Absolutely.
send any question that you got. Very good questions today.
Absolutely. We'll leave it open for about another minute. And again, if you have a question and you don't feel like typing it in or having us answer it on here, please, feel free to email me and we can definitely give you the best answer that we can and get it to the correct person on our team.
I believe our next webinar, Cheyenne's coming up October the 19th, our last one of the year. And it's a very popular one that we've done before. We're going to be talking about the various designs that we recommend for different types of crossings.
You are
Crossing
correct.
solutions.
Yes.
So we hope that our people that are joining us today can join us then as well.
And for those that are interested in looking back at previous webinars, feel free to go onto YouTube. We have all of our webinars posted up on there. All you have to do is just type in YBC or York Bridge Concepts, and you should be able to see those past webinars. All right, well, I believe that is it for the questions. Thank you so much again for attending today's session, and we hope you have a great rest of your week. All right, goodbye, Titus.
Bye, Cheyenne.